So I'm just going to go ahead and go to our next section, which is GPA. And as far as advice goes, the reason we're starting with this before other things is because it's the hardest to fix and the most common requirement of admissions that parents who call us are unaware of different metrics about it. So we're just going to talk about the most common things that parents learn too late about GPA. And I'm going to ask you all another question that I want you to just think about the answer. You don't have to answer out loud. But what would you guess is the minimum GPA to get merit-based scholarship money at UT? Would you guess is the minimum GPA to get merit-based scholarship money at UT? And the answer to that is a 3.8 GPA. That's weighted, 3.8 weighted GPA. Therefore, even if your student has a 36 on the ACT, they will likely not get $1 of merit-based scholarship money from UT unless they have a 3.8 GPA. And I can't tell you the number of times that we have spoken with students who have a 3.7 GPA when they're applying. And it's detrimental to not be aware of that number from the beginning. If you're not going to UT, there are two GPA numbers that are important to keep in mind. The first one is 3.75 is the minimum GPA to achieve the second level of the HOPE scholarship called the GAMS, the General Assembly Merit Scholarship. And this is a great thing because it has an ACT requirement as well. And we'll talk about that when we get to the ACT section. But you need to know that you need to have a 3.75 weighted GPA to be able to qualify for that. And you get it to any school that you go to in Tennessee. So it's a great thing. At most other colleges, 3.5 GPA is the most common low number to be scholarship eligible, regardless of what your ACT score is. So, 3.5 is what we really, want to stay above while you are in high school. And specifically, a 3.5 GPA / 3.75, / 3.8 for UT by the end of your junior year. All right. And the reason being GPA deadlines. You may have never heard that word because I just made it up. But it is something that might have a word, but we never hear about it. And we rarely hear parents know about this. But at many of the larger universities, pre-COVID, COVID has changed some things, but we imagine that it's going to go back to this. But pre-COVID, they're only looking, the bigger universities are only looking at your GPA from your freshman through your junior year of high school. A student can lose their admission or their scholarships based on how they do their senior year, but they cannot gain it based on how they do their senior year. So this is, a lot of families, they have a 3.7 GPA at the end of their junior year. They're wanting to go to UT. They're hoping that before they apply, they can get it up to that 3.8 GPA. But the reality is the application deadline is before they're going to get the results back from fall of their senior year. And therefore, it's just going to be freshman through junior year at many of these large universities. So being mindful of your school's GPA deadline and other deadlines are just as important as knowing the actual application deadlines and other aspects that most parents do know. So the next thing we want to talk about as far as GPA goes is what a GPA measures. If you are only taking this, or if you're only taking one metric into consideration, the GPA is the best single metric to determine how a student will do in college. And sometimes the ACT, sometimes people use this fact to bash the ACT. But the reality is that the GPA and the ACT measure two different things. And even though the GPA alone is better at predicting success than ACT scores alone, the GPA and ACT scores together are significantly better at predicting how well a student will do in college than GPA alone. And, regardless of whether, you're a fan of the ACT or not, I mean, we can go different ways. The statistics do show that it is useful when combined on those metrics. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. But GPA is mostly measuring how hard a student works and how good they are at taking care of their responsibilities. The GPA has almost no correlation with how a student is going to do on the ACT. And we'll talk about what does later. But a lot of you are going to be very dissatisfied when your student takes the ACT for the first time, if they haven't yet, to learn they have an awesome GPA and don't do so well on the ACT. The ACT is more a measure of the mastery level of understanding of the basics of grammar, math, reading speed and comprehension, and science reasoning. So those are the three things about GPA that we see are missed by so many families that we wanted to make sure that you all got tonight.